Hello students, good morning and welcome back to daily newspaper analysis of 2nd April. Yes, today I am here with three new important topics for prelims as well as mains. Let's start our discussion. Okay, so these are the topics for today. So first is related to solid waste management rules 2026. These rules have to be implemented from 1st of April. That's why this topic is very important. After that, second important topic is related to E20, that is ethanol blending of petrol. So it was also to be implemented by 1st of April. That's why this topic is also important. And third topic is related to the impact of US Federal Reserve's policy on Indian economy. So why this topic is important? Because in previous year, I think recently only two questions are being asked from the impact of US Federal Reserve policy on Indian economy. So first of all, here we will be discussing PYQ so that you will get an idea what type of questions are being asked, and then we shall be discussing the topic in detail. So let's start our first topic. Okay. So first topic is related to solid waste management rules 2026. So here the context is the as the rules were notified earlier only, but they will be implemented from 1st of April. So the provisions of the solid waste management rules are very important. Why they are important? Because a direct question was asked from solid waste management rules 2016. This time also from 2026 rules also question can be asked. Before going deep into the topic, first of all, let's discuss the PYQ itself so that you will get an idea that what type of questions are being asked. See, this is the question. This was the question of prelims 2019. So that time, solid waste management rules 2016 were the new rules. So see, what type of question is being asked. First type of statement is waste generator category has to segregate waste into five categories. Directly from the provision. Second is rules are applicable to notified urban local bodies, notified towns, and all industrial townships only. Third is the rules provide for exact elaborate criteria for identification of sites for landfills and waste processing facilities. And last is it is mandatory on the part of waste generator that waste generated in one district. Sorry, just a second. I think there is some problem. Let me import the file once again. Okay. Yes. So this was the thing. So a final statement was it is mandatory on the part of waste generator that waste generated in one district cannot be moved to another district. So now here is the thing. These are the type of statements which can be asked in the upcoming exam also for 2026. So now based on all these points, let's discuss the provisions. Okay, so first important provision is about the segregation of the solid waste. So basically here four categories are provided for segregation of solid waste. First is wet waste, dry waste, sanitary waste and special care waste. So when we talk about the 2016 solid waste management rules, so earlier there were three categories, that was wet waste, dry waste and no other special care products like any hazardous waste and all. But now the categories have shifted from 3 to 4. So this number is very important. Now let's start discussion in detail. So what is the main purpose of the solid waste management rules? So there must be a shift from collect and dump model to circular economy. And why we are focusing on circular economy? Because it focuses on recovery, recycling and accountability of waste generators. Now let's discuss briefly what is circular economy. What is circular economy? So see, first of all, talking about the collect and dump model, that means, for example, you brought a plate and then you used that steel plate, and after 5 or 10 years, you finally dump that steel plate. So, after you dump that steel plate, the waste collectors will collect it, and finally, the waste collectors also will dump it in landfill or some other site. So, this was the concept of collect and dump model. Now, if we talk about the circular economy, so taking the same example of steel plate. So, for example, you bought a steel plate, you used that steel plate for 10 years, and finally you discarded that steel plate. So now when you discard that steel plate, so it's not like it will end up in landfill. Now what will happen? The waste collectors will collect it, and after collecting, the waste collectors will melt that steel plate, and finally that steel plate will again get converted into the utensils. So this is the meaning of circular economy, that you are recycling the product and not every time you are not using the same product. Second important thing about the provisions is who is the notifying authority. So since they are solid waste management rules related to environment and hence it was notified by Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change. Second important thing is what was the act under which it was notified. So since it is related to environment, hence it was notified under Environment Protection Act 1986. Now talking about what were the earlier rules. So earlier rules were the Solid Waste Management Rules 2016. Right, and here the waste is dumped inside the ground. So this is the main right, and here the waste is dumped inside the ground. So this is the main concept of landfill. So the primary objective is to achieve the zero waste to the landfill. Reason is since we are disposing the this waste inside the ground, and inside the ground that means this waste has the contact with soil as well as water. So if this waste is here for long period of time, then it can contaminate the soil also as well as it can contaminate the water also. So this is the primary objective, that we have to reduce the waste in the landfill and hence we have to save the environment. After that, key features of these new rules. So this we have already discussed, that It involves four stream segregation. What it involves? Four stream segregation and not three stream segregation. Three stream segregation was in 2016. So now let's discuss what are those four streams. So wet waste, dry waste, sanitary waste as well as special care waste. So what all will come under wet waste? Wet waste like certain kind of kitchen waste like the peels of fruits and vegetables. So this will be the part of wet waste which can be biodegraded. Second kind of waste is the dry waste like the papers, like the metal, clips, etc. Talking about the sanitary waste means the baby diapers or sanitary napkins which you have to wrap and then you have to dispose. And finally, some of the special care waste like the hazardous waste like mercury, medicines, etc. So these four streams are very important. Even if you do not know the name of the stream, but at least you must know the number of the streams, that in how many streams the waste has to be segregated. After that, next important concept is related to extended bulk waste generator responsibility. So first of all, the provisions have defined who are bulk waste generators. Bulk waste generators are the entities who generate more than 100 kg per day of waste or who consume more than 40,000 liters of water per day or who have more than 20,000 meter square area. So these are the entities who are called bulk waste generators. So, for example, we can call any society having 10 or 20 residential buildings, any society having 500 to 6,000, 500 to 600 apartments. From the government, they have to obtain extended bulk waste generator responsibility certificate. So, this certificate will show that whether you are complying with the government regulations or not. Next provision is related to digital governance. So here a centralized online portal will be there. And what will be the purpose of this portal? This portal will track each and everything from waste collecting to waste disposal. For example, if I talk about all these entities, so see, first these entities will collect waste. After collecting waste, they will segregate waste. After segregating waste, they will treat the waste. After treating the waste, they will conduct independent audit so that government entities will know that you are complying with regulations or not. So maybe some entities will say on paper they will present the fake documents and they will say that I have followed all these procedures. So to avoid all these things, the government has established a centralized online portal so that all these things can be easily tracked. Now, coming to polluters pay principle concept. So, polluters pay principle meaning, if for example, if you are using the fake documents and not you are not complying with the regulations, then you have to pay the compensation for environmental non-compliance. For example, if you submit the false data or fake documents, you have to pay the environmental compensation. Now, next concept is about the refused derived fuel promotion. So this thing is very important. UPSC can ask question that whether there is mention of refused derived fuel in the provisions or not. So first of all, let's discuss the concept of refused derived fuel. Then you will understand. Just so then you will understand that what article is talking about. See, we will understand here. Refuse, refused derived fuel. So see what will happen. For example, this is your municipal solid waste. Now, what will happen? The waste collectors will segregate the waste. So, from this municipal solid waste, non degradable waste will be separated out. And what will happen? Now, this non degradable solid waste will be first dried. After drying, it will be converted into small pellets. And now, these small pellets can be used as a fuel like coal. So what will happen if we are using all these non-degradable substance as a fuel, then hence the demand for fossil fuel, that is coal, will reduce. So that's why the provision says that we have to promote the use of refuse derived fuel. And how much we have to promote? We have to increase the use of refuse derived fuel from 5% to 15% over 6 years. So this is the percentage. Over the period of 6 years, we have to increase from 5% to 15%. And you must know the concept of refuse derived fuel also. UPSC can ask the question. It can give 3 or 4 points, and it can ask which all fuel come under the category of refuse derived fuel. Now, let's discuss about the landfill and legacy waste. So, this is also very important. The provision specifically says that what all waste can you dump in the landfill. It says that only non-recyclable or inert waste can be dumped into the landfill. What is the meaning for this? For example, this is a site, and here you have dumped the waste inside the ground. So, this is a landfill. So, the provision says that here only inert waste or non-recyclable waste can be there. Why inert? Because if it is inert, then it will not react with the soil or water, hence it will not contaminate the environment. Why non-recyclable? Because if it is recyclable, then you recycle it and you recover the material from it. Don't dump it in the landfill. So here those substances will be there only which are not harming the environment or which are not recyclable. Next provision is related to hilly or island regions. So this is a simple provision where the local bodies of the hilly or island regions will be given the power that they can regulate the number of tourists entering their region, because they will decide this based on the recycling capacity. Okay. So I think this PYQ we have already discussed. So if this similar kind of question now is being asked in 2026, and if this is the statement, so the statement says waste generator has to segregate waste into 5 categories. So now it is 4 categories. Earlier when this question was asked, the answer was 3 categories. Now, next article is related to E20. Okay, so why this E20 was important? Because from 1st of April, the all the provisions related to E20 blending were to be implemented, and the rating of the fuel must be minimum of 95 RON, that is research octane number. So we shall be discussing what is E20 and what is research octane number, what is ethanol blending, etc. First of all, let's discuss about E20 fuel. What is the meaning of E20? So basically, E20 means we are mixing 20% of ethanol with 80% of gasoline. So here, 20% of ethanol we are mixing with 80% of gasoline or 80% of petrol. So this type of blending, this type of fuel we call as E20 fuel. 20 means the percentage of ethanol. Now, under the ethanol blending program, India has a particular target. What was that target? That till 2021-22, 10% of ethanol must be blended with petrol, and by 2025-26, 20% of blending must be there. That's why now we are doing 20% of ethanol with petrol. Now you may ask that diesel is also used in the automobiles, in the cars and other vehicles. Then why only petrol? See, the thing is, the trials were done with diesel also, but those trials were not very successful, and they were damaging the engine parts. So that's why at present we are focusing on blending only ethanol with petrol. Yes, now let's discuss briefly about the benefits of ethanol blending. So first important benefit is about the energy security, because as we know that India imports around 85% of fossil fuels, and given the recent West Asia crisis and other geopolitical vulnerabilities, this energy security is very important for India. So as we know that because of the West Asia conflict, the price of fuels have also risen. So if India had its own ethanol blending program, India can produce its own fuel, then India do not need to depend on the other countries for the fossil fuels. Talking about the environmental gains, so when the vehicles use complete petrol, diesel, or other kind of fossil fuels, then we have unburnt hydrocarbon emissions, we have emissions of oxides of nitrogen, we have emissions of carbon monoxide, and etc. etc. So because of all these emissions, what all phenomena do we face? What all problems we face? We face problem of climate change like the urban heat island or the heat waves, etc. Also, acid rain is also possible because of the oxides of nitrogen. So when we are blending ethanol with petrol, what happens? The quantity of oxygen in the petrol increases. And if the quantity of oxygen increases, then the amount of unburnt hydrocarbon and carbon monoxide reduces. So because of this also, we can have the environmental gains. Talking about the farmer welfare, what is the reason for that? The ethanol blending program use variety of products like the maize, sugarcane, etc. So these all these food products are being taken from the rural farmers only. So because of that, it will ensure the income security and will ensure the income diversification for the rural farmers. Now, let's talk about some of the concerns which are related to ethanol blending program. So, first important concern is about the food security risk. As we know that various kind of food products like the sugarcane, maize, damaged grains like the rice, wheat, etc. are being used. So, since demand of ethanol is increasing, so more and more food products are being diverted for the ethanol production. And if more food is diverted for the fuel production, then we will be having the food scarcity. A very good example is the at present India is facing scarcity of maize or scarcity of corn, because maize and corn are generally used in the starch industry also, but since they are being diverted for the production of ethanol, so hence we are facing the food scarcity. And as you also know that poultry industry also use corn or maize a lot. So it is impacting those kind of industries also. Talking about the water risk, so as you know, the very important component in the ethanol production mainly is sugarcane. And sugarcane is a water intensive crop. Water intensive, I will give you an example. If we talk of 1 kg of sugarcane, then 1 kg of sugarcane takes at least 1500 to 2000 liters of water. So it is water intensive. And if these water intensive crops are being grown in arid or semi-arid regions, then it will create water scarcity. Talking about the vehicle compatibility. So according to various reports and according to various experiments, no old vehicles are not compatible with ethanol blending fuel, and hence the mileage will also reduce. The mileage of the fuel will also reduce, the efficiency of the fuel will also reduce, and in older vehicles, corrosion of engine parts can also happen. So these are some of the concerns related to ethanol blending. Now let's quickly discuss various facts about ethanol. So first of all, ethanol, that means ethyl alcohol. So this is the formula of ethanol. Basically, generally the wine or generally the drinks which people have, so mainly it is ethanol. So a small amount in that is of methanol also, but mainly it is ethanol. So ethanol is also called ethyl alcohol and has applications in variety of industries. Important thing is ethanol is clear, colorless liquid with a characteristic odor and taste. Pure ethanol is non-toxic and biodegradable. You have to remember all these things. Pure ethanol is non-toxic and biodegradable. Now talking about the sources, that from where ethanol is being sourced. So it is produced from various sources, but mainly it is derived from sugar cane, corn, or damaged food grains are also being used like wheat or rice. Also, it can be produced from the other cellulosic material like agricultural residues and wood. Yes, this concept of research octane number is very important because government has recommended minimum RON of 95. So first of all, let's understand. See, for example, this is your four-stroke diesel engine, and this is your inlet valve. This is your exhaust valve. So through inlet valve, here comes the mixture of air and fuel. So air and fuel are mixed, and now they are being injected into the cylinder for the compression and for the power stroke. Now sometimes it happens that this mixture of air and fuel is not completely burned, or before starting the power stroke, it is prematurely burned. So because of that, what happens? No, engine produces a sound, and that sound we call as knocking. So this knocking is not a sound itself. This knocking also reduces the efficiency of engine, and it can also burn out the parts of engine. So overall, it is not good for the health of the engine also. So what is RON? RON measures the fuel's ability to resist knocking under the controlled conditions. So that's why if RON is higher, hence the ability of fuel to control the knocking is also higher. That's why fuel of higher RON is always preferred. So earlier, according to government provisions, the RON must be at least 91. But now government has increased it to 95 to increase the fuel efficiency. Now, a very important topic. This topic is about the impact of US Federal Reserve's policy on Indian economy. So why this topic is important? At present, it is important because of the falling rupee, because of rupee is depreciating. Main reason is the West Asia conflict. So at present, the what happened? The context is the former Deputy Governor of RBI has recommended that India can use the Federal Reserve facility of US to deal with the falling rupee. So let's understand what all things were recommended, and then we shall be understanding the impact of US Federal Reserve's policy on Indian economy. So this is the context. The former deputy governor of RBI has recommended that India can use foreign and international monetary authorities repo facility. So you have to remember this FEMA repo facility because it can be directly asked in the exam that this facility is related to what context. So the governor has recommended that India can use the FEMA repo facility of US Federal Reserve. So what is the reason for that? This facility can be used so that we can save Indian rupee from falling because at present only $1 is approximately equal to 90 to 95 Indian rupees. So if rupee is falling, then imports will become more and more expensive. So that's why we have to deal with falling Indian rupee. So what this FEMA repo facility will do? See, RBI has US Treasury facility, US Treasury securities with itself. So what RBI will do? RBI will give all these securities to US Federal Bank. Securities are a kind of bond. And as we know, if we are giving bond to someone, then someone will give us money. So if we are depositing these securities with the Federal Bank of USA, then Federal Bank will give us money in the form of dollars. And this will deal with the short-term US dollar crunch. And later we will return this money to US Federal Bank and we will return with the interest. So what will be the significance of this? If the amount of dollar is increasing in the Indian economy, that means rupee is being balanced with respect to dollar, and hence rupee will appreciate a bit because at present Indian rupee is at 95 rupee per dollar. So this is the reason for that. So it is no kind of open market operation only. that whenever you feel, whenever RBI feels that there is liquidity crunch, or whenever RBI feels there is surplus, so based on that, RBI either sells bond or it will buy the bond. So same thing is happening here. So it is not open market operation, but it is similar to open market operation. That RBI will give the US Treasury securities, and in return, RBI will get US dollars. Now quickly, let's understand what is the overall impact of US federal policy on Indian market. Before that, we shall be discussing the PYQs first. So you will get an idea why I am focusing more on this. See, this is a prelims question of 2021. Question was, Indian government bond yields are influenced by which of the following? And first statement was actions of United States Federal Reserve. So, see, I am not explaining the entire question, but I am just saying that impact of United States Federal Reserve is being continuously asked in prelims. That's why you must know the impact, what all impact is having on Indian economy. Second PYQ. Second PYQ was asked in 2022. First was asked in 2021. Second was in 2022. Question is, consider the following statements. Tight monetary policy of US Federal Reserve could lead to capital flight. Right. So here it is again it is asking the impact of the US Federal Reserve policy on Indian economy. So because of that, seeing all these PYQs, now I will discuss the overall impact. So next time in 2026, maybe UPSC can ask another effect. But if you know the basics, that how basically it is impacting Indian economy, it is impacting inflation, it is impacting the exchange rate, then easily you can answer. So first of all, I will talk about how US federal policy impact the exchange rate channel, how it impacts the value of rupee. So here I will take an example. For example, there is hike in interest rates. Hike in interest rates of US Federal Reserve, of US Federal Bank. So similar, it is similar to the, for example, Indian banks are increasing the interest rate. So here I am taking the example that US Central Bank has increased the rates. Now what will happen? If rates are increased, then the people who have deposits in the federal bank, they will earn more interest. More interest means they will get more money, they will get more return. Now, let's discuss this scenario. For example, this is Indian banks and these are US banks. Now, at present, US banks have increased the interest rates. That means the return on the deposits in the US banks is more. Here, the return is more. Now, what the investors will do, the investors who have deposited their money already in India, who have invested in India, they will take their money back from India. So, how they will take money? First, they will take their money in the form of rupees. Now they will convert this rupees in the form of dollar, and they will invest this dollar in the central bank of USA. So can you see what is happening here? If they are putting more and more rupee in the Indian economy to take more and more dollars, then here the quantity of dollars will reduce and the quantity of rupees will increase. So what we can say, the demand of rupee is reducing and the demand of dollars is increasing. Hence, if the demand of rupee is decreasing, the rupee will depreciate, and hence rupee will depreciate with respect to dollar. So now see, two things we can see. First thing is that if US central bank or US federal bank increases the interest rates, then first thing will happen is it will depreciate Indian rupee. Second thing will happen is the investors will take all the investment from India to USA. So no, they will sell all the bonds, all the securities, everything, and they will go to USA. So second thing, it will lead to the capital flight. Capital flight means now capital is moving from India to USA. So two things are happening. First thing is rupee will depreciate. Second thing is capital flight will happen. So these all things are discussed in these 2 points. First is, if federal rate hikes, then it will strengthen US dollar and it will depreciate Indian rupee. Second thing is about the capital flow. Capital flow means since now US market is more lucrative, US market is generating more return, so all the capital will move from India to USA. Now, talking about the inflation channel, so how US federal bank's policy is affecting inflation. So, see, as we know, as we have already discussed, if interest rates in USA are more, if interest rates are more, it will depreciate Indian rupee. And if Indian rupee is depreciated, it will make the imports more costly. And if imports are costly, anything is costly, that means the inflation is on the rise. Second way, what we can say in which inflation can increase, for example, this is a domestic industry. And in this domestic industry, we use some imported products. Now, as we know that imported products are becoming costly, hence the overall price of the domestic products will also increase. And if overall price increases, inflation increases. So here we have discussed impact on three things. First, impact on exchange rate. Second, impact on capital flow. And third, we have discussed the impact on the inflation channel. So all these impacts are very important because maybe in 2026, any of the statement can be related to US Fed rates hike or US Fed rate policy. Okay, so this is a practice question for you. So please go through the article once again and please answer this question. With reference to a reduction in the policy interest rates by US Federal Reserve, consider the following statements. First is, it may lead to increased capital inflows into emerging markets like India. Second is, it can put upward pressure on Indian rupee. Third is, it may reduce the attractiveness of US assets for global investors. And finally, it necessarily leads to higher inflation in India in the short term. So please go through the article once again and try to answer this question. If you have any doubt, you can write in the comment section because maybe from all these three articles, UPSC can ask question because for the first two articles, that is E20 and the solid waste management rules, the implementation date was 1st April 2026 only. That's why question can be asked. And the last topic of US Federal Reserve policy, so question can be asked anytime because it is related to static part only. So yes, that's all for today. And if you have any doubt, you can ask in the comment section. And thank you.